Warning: Crescent City Crime contains violent and explicit content that is not suitable for a younger audience. Some topics may be disturbing or triggering for sensitive listeners. Listen at your own risk. Thank you for listening to Crescent City Crime. If you wish to further support the show, please make sure to like, rate, and review this podcast on your preferred listening platform. We can also be found on YouTube at Crescent City Crime. You can discuss episodes with other listeners in our private Facebook group or follow us on Twitter. You can also visit our merch store. All of our social media links, show notes, sources, and more can be found in our blog, nolacrimepodcast.com. That's NOLA, N-O-L-A, crimepodcast.com. We are now on Patreon. On our Patreon, we feature discussions about movies that revolve around crime and offer exclusive merch. If you would like to hear that extra content from us twice a month and access exclusive merch, subscribe to us at patreon.com/Crescent City Crime. We would appreciate it if you help spread the word about Crescent City Crime. Tell a friend or aggressively scream our podcast name at your enemies. The music used in this episode is The Black Fingerprint, and it was composed by Dylan Owen. Welcome to Crescent City Crime, dear listeners. I'm Tracy.
And I'm Brian.
So before we begin today's episode, just want to have a quick reminder that next week is going to be our monthly break from Murder and Mayhem. However, we're not going to leave you without any content, so look for our monthly conversational series that we are calling Coffee Talk. You don't have to subscribe to anything else since it will be in the same podcast feed you're currently listening to. Coffee Talk will cover the lighter side of New Orleans. And for our first episode, we're going to discuss a little-known feud between Al Copeland and Anne Rice. So, Brian, are you ready to get into today's case?
Sure.
Renata Yamika Lowe was born on September 30th, 1982. She grew up in the Magnolia Projects near Central City in New Orleans. Young Renata was fortunate to have both of her parents in her life. They had a loving marriage, and her father, Raymond, was a keyboard player and singer who played musical gigs throughout the city. Her mother, Brenda, made sure that Renata attended church. Renata started writing lyrics, and her parents supported her musical interest. Brenda purchased a tape recorder, so Renata started writing lyrics and her parents supported her musical interest. Brenda purchased a tape recorder so Renata could hone her talents. Young Renata was growing up at the time bounce music was created. Brian, you know what bounce music is?
Yeah.
Probably one of the most known bounce artists out there is Big Frida, she's a fixture in the city, and I'm sure that you remember when there was a time when she did that ad for a local attorney, and for a minute I had the jingle as my ringtone.
Yeah.
So when young Renata was growing up and got into bounce music, so bounce music is an energetic style of hip hop that originated in New Orleans housing projects. Did you know that bounce music was created here?
Yes. Yeah. And there's occasionally, especially on like Friday through Sunday in Tremay along South Claiborne Avenue. Another reason to avoid South Claiborne Avenue is an entire lane of traffic could be shut down.
Yeah.
By spontaneous booty dancing in a lane of traffic.
Well, we do live in New Orleans, so that's what we do. We dance in the streets here. So some bounce music artists, besides Big Frida, that you might be familiar with, is DJ Jubilee and Partners in Crime. The bounce style is characterized by call and response style parties and Mardi Gras Indian chants and dance callouts. Eventually, Renata started working the block party circuit. The first time her mother saw a performance, she was amazed that her daughter was able to keep the crowd focused on her, and her shows were described as electric and energetic. After her popularity increased, she created the song Monkey on the Dick. It is widely considered a bounce classic, and due to her success, she was approached by New Orleans music producers. Ronald Slim Williams and Birdman, who worked for Cash Money Records, signed her to a contract and Magnolia Shorty was born. She received her nickname from Soldier Slim, who had also grown up in the Magnolia Projects. She was only the second woman to be signed to the Cash Money record label at that time. She was an elite company and rubbed shoulders with Lil Wayne, BG, and Juvenile. In the early 90s, she collaborated with them and first appeared on Juvenile's song Third Ward Soldier. SOLJA.
Yeah.
So Magnolia Shorty perfected her own dynamic style, and her work is responsible for opening up the music world to women like Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, and the City Girls. So she had a direct influence on these major musical artists. In the months after Hurricane Katrina, Magnolia Shorty booked shows in Houston, which made displaced New Orleans residents feel at home. The shows she booked caused the bounce culture to spread throughout the South, and this earned her the title the Queen of Bounce. Due to her success, a lot of hopefuls were trying to break into the industry. Jerome Hampton was one such person. Jerome Hampton had also grown up in the Magnolia Projects, and he had a troubled past. He had been involved with drug and gang activity, but he wanted out of that life. He was hoping that music would be his ticket to better things. Magnolia Shorty took him under her wing. On Monday, December the 20th, 2010, Magnolia Shorty was parking her Chevy Malibu in the New Orleans East apartment complex where she lived, and Jerome Hampton was with her. She was booked for an out-of-town show, and he was going to accompany her to learn the ropes. But as she pulled in, another car cut her off. The occupants got out of the vehicle and opened fire on both Magnolia Shorty and Jerome Hampton. Attempting to flee, Magnolia Shorty accelerated the car as the shooting erupted and crashed into a wooden fence. She and Jerome both died at the scene, and police found more than 50 spent shell casings.
Yeah, that was definitely a hit.
Yeah.
Or it's funny how they say that New Orleans doesn't really have organized crime. They call it disorganized crime, but this wasn't a drug hit. This was a rivalry type of thing. Whereas unfortunately, in some of the gangster rap and hip hop circles, rivals will try to kill each other, literally.
Yeah, it's a form of justice that is not within the justice system, right?
Well, as a street
justice.
justice. One of these hits can even be the result of some type of perceived disrespect.
Yeah.
As well, and that actually goes back centuries. It's like, hundreds of years ago, like say for example, two travelers run into each other, and one feels disrespected, and they fight to the death, and it's to me this is kind of similar, because it's culturally related. It has everything to do with culture.
Well, we will get to what this was actually about. Her funeral services were paid for by Cash Money Records, and at least 2,500 people attended the service. The mourners included Lil Wayne, Juvenile, and Cash Money co-founder Brian Baby Williams. Magnolia Shorty's last song was called Smoking Gun, which was played by the Stooges brass band during her funeral procession. It was not known publicly until 2015 who was responsible for the shooting. Unsealed federal documents revealed that Tyrone Knockham, 25 years old, and Rico Jackson, 33, had admitted to being amongst 5 gang members who were present when 4 of them opened fire. Tyrone Knockham and Rico Jackson were just pieces of a larger web of gang activity. A gang known as the 39ers managed a violent drug dealing enterprise from Central City to the Ninth Ward. Like other drug gangs, the 39ers killed and menaced people who got in their way. Tyrone Knockham admitted to driving a white Ford Crown Victoria that contained Gregory Stewart, Rico Jackson, Terrius Oney, and McCoy Walker. They were actively hunting for Jerome Hampton, who was a member of a rival drug gang.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The record stated that Knockham pleaded guilty to his part in the murders of Renata Lowe and Jerome Hampton. His guilty plea was contingent on federal prosecutors not pursuing the death penalty against him. Knockham had admitted that he was a member of a gang that sold crack cocaine and heroin. He also admitted that he aided and abetted the other gang members seeking out Jerome Hampton. Knockham pleaded guilty to state charges against him in exchange for a 20-year sentence, which he is currently serving in federal prison.
Okay, so what happened here was she unknowingly kept bad company, and she was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
That is what happened. But what I can't get over is over 50 spent shell casings. That's a lot of bullets to shoot at two people.
Yeah, the violent street criminals. I would say ever since the 80s, violent street criminals have been terrible shots, and they're not, like I said, it's pretty much disorganized crime. They're not really good at what they do. They don't know how to shoot that well, so they resort to spray and pray. They're not professionals. They're not like the mafia hoods who were well trained and would make sure that they only involved the person who they were out to kill.
That's true. When Rico Jackson pleaded guilty and admitted to being armed with an SKS semi-automatic assault weapon during the shooting.
Simonov, yeah, that's what the S stands for. Simonov was the Russian designer of that rifle. It's a short-lived Russian service rifle. It was only in service for 3 years.
Oh.
But it became a drill rifle for decades by the Russians after that, and I believe they're still used as drill rifles. They were replaced by the AK-47 and then later on the AKM, the Tobomat Kalashnikov, but it uses the same ammunition as the AK-47 does. And they're, historically, when they were still imported from China and even Russia later on after the fall of the Iron Curtain, they were pretty inexpensive, at like $100 to $200 a pop, pretty much.
And that was Gun History Moment with Brian. So, according to the court documents, Rico Jackson participated in the murder of Jerome Hampton with his associates in an effort to protect their drug turf and retaliate against a rival drug dealer for the purposes of maintaining and increasing his position in the gang. He also said that in the court documents that Renata Lowe was not the intended target, but just happened to be in the way. Rico Jackson is currently serving a life sentence for 2 counts of murder in aid of racketeering. Terrius Oney and McCoy Walker also received life sentences for their part in the murder. However, the most notorious person who was finally put behind bars for life due to participating in the murder was Gregory Stewart. He pleaded guilty and received a life prison term. These men were also convicted under the RICO Act, which stands for the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act. And they were convicted under this because of their violent and murderous actions in connection with drug activity. And I just want to say that this is not the only time we will have people who are convicted under RICO in New Orleans discussed on this podcast.
It appears in the New Orleans area, the majority of your federal RICO convictions are definitely drug related.
That's very true. In a 47-count federal indictment, the 39ers gang that detailed offenses between January of 2009 and September of 2011. None of those crimes drew more attention than the horrible death of Renata Lowe, who was not connected to any gang activity. She was an innocent woman who was preparing to go to work and helping someone who was trying to make a different life for himself. However, the gang members did not care that she wasn't part of that world. They simply saw the opportunity to murder Jerome Hampton.
Once again, it's this kind of criminal. They really don't care who gets in the line of fire. And sometimes in the New Orleans downtown area, especially like a Friday or Saturday evening, when 2 former business associates of bad blood see each other, they'll simultaneously draw their pistols and fire on each other, sometimes with a police officer just 6 feet away. They don't care.
Yeah.
It seems like whatever bad blood or disrespect that was.
It overrides everything else.
It overrides everything else. Yes.
Even though Renata's life was cut short, Magnolia Shorty's music lived on. And you've heard of the musical artist, right?
Yeah.
Right, okay. In 2018, he created the song In My Feelings. Listeners can hear Magnolia Shorty's music woven throughout the song. The music producer, Black Nimble D, has long been a part of the New Orleans music scene, and he has worked with local artists such as Fifth Ward Weeby and Big Frida. He is responsible for splicing parts of Magnolia Shorty's song Smoking Gun with In My Feelings. Now, you remember the Kiki challenge? It was that thing where like people would walk in front of a moving car or something.
Yeah.
That was the song.
Huh.
This was a song for what they called the internet called the Kiki challenge.
Huh.
In specifically like when Drake sings "Kiki, do you love me?" Magnolia Shorty's voice comes in and says, "You're the only one I love." And in the official video for In My Feelings was filmed in New Orleans in July. The storyline revolves around a dream Drake has about being a New Orleans rapper. Big Frida and Saints running back Alvin Kamara make cameo appearances in this video.
Ah.
Renata's family had nothing but kind words and praise for this development. Renata's older sister, Renelle, said, "Oh my goodness, it's remarkable. I had started to feel like she had just been forgotten about in the music industry. I'm ecstatic to see that she's back in the spotlight and she deserves it. The whole family is thrilled. Her dream was taken away from her, but she's still living out her dream through the grave. Her dream still exists thanks to Black Nimble D, who produced the song. I have nothing but the utmost respect for him, and I'm thanking Black every day for bringing her legacy back." Renell Lowe, who currently works as a counselor for incarcerated juvenile offenders, said that hearing the song for the first time was a surreal moment, and that every time she hears it, she has to let the whole song play out. And do you have any final thoughts on this?
Now, what really strikes me here is you have to be careful of the company you keep, and it's also a very good idea to not only stay away from dangerous parts of town, but if you live in a dangerous part of town, to do everything you can to move away from there as soon as you can.
Well, I mean, it sounds like Magnolia Shorty did that. I know that the Magnolia Projects are not the best place to grow up, but she was lucky in that she had a family who loved her and helped her pursue her dreams. And New Orleans East it's not that bad.
Well, there are certain parts of it that are every bit
Yeah.
as violent and dangerous as Magnolia, which is in Central City, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Magnolia Street stretches from Central City all the way to the Tulane University campus. So you have nice parts of Magnolia Street that are uptown around Tulane University, and you have the not so nice parts in Central City area, which has recently Central City has been a hotbed of what gang activity there is in this area,
Yeah.
and drug violence.
Yeah, but it it wasn't even like when she was killed. I mean, she was not the target. It was just it was that other guy. So even if she was living in a not so nice area of New Orleans East, she would not have been killed that day if Jerome wouldn't have been with her.
Yeah, which is true. Which is why you have to. This is like police investigation talk, but some people don't do this. But it's a good idea to vet your friends.
Yeah,
Really,
yeah, and these days it's easy to vet your friends.
that's true.
It's a
Yeah,
lot easier now
the
to
internet.
do
Yeah,
than it ever has been before. That was the story of Magnolia Shorty, and make sure that you tune in for Coffee Talk next week, dear listeners. However, when we return for our next episode of Crescent City Crime, we will discuss the murder of Robert Irwin. So, goodbye, dear listeners. We will talk to you again soon.
good night, and remember, if it's dark, it's bad, and it's dangerous, don't even be there in the first place.
Stay safe, dear listeners.